pretty fast.
We'll call a regular meeting of the New Ulm City Council for December 18, 2018, 4:30 PM to order. First item on the agenda is your consent agenda items. What's your wishes?
I'll for a motion to approve those.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on any? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 2A, conduct a, let me go up here first. Conduct a public hearing to consider a resolution to establish the New Ulm Police Department body-worn camera policy. Got something on that, Dave? I see we got a bunch of them in the back.
We do.
Thanks.
President Schmitz, members of the council, I'm Dave Borkert, I'm Chief of Police for the City of New Ulm. And thank you for this opportunity as far as having a public hearing on this. As far as our body-worn camera, having a public hearing, it's in compliance to Minnesota state statute. But even more than that, I think it's important that we're getting input from decision makers and from the public at large. So when we're going through this, I just want to kind of give an overview. We want to certainly answer any and all questions that you would have, and then we're looking for guidance and we're looking for input. We're functioning under a Department of Justice grant, a matching grant, and we've used the League of Minnesota Cities basically to make it a little bit more real, a little more practical for Minnesota. So we've certainly been conferring with them. As far as a timeline, we're looking to, if this would be approved, we're certainly looking into doing practical testing very soon here. And then we'll have to go through a purchase requisition and then implementation. It's a common question we get as far as of timelines. I'd really like to have us using the thing with full implementation sometime in spring, late spring, early summer. But again, sometimes some of that is out of a person's control. Once we would order the cameras, there'd be a certain amount of time that would have to be used as far as building the cameras up for each squad or we'll get into that a little bit later. But as far as syncing it with what we have for cameras in our squad car. So there'd be some time involved. Some of that is out of our control. The vendor that we oftentimes use does field work. He's local. He's very accessible. He does a very nice job. But some of that might be depending on the time of year that we get the cameras in and so on and so forth. But again, just to answer that question, because that's come up, we'd like something by spring or early summer. And then as far as recording, we plan on recording on the server, and we'll have one of our committee members that'll be giving a little bit more detail on that later. As far as the policy, it's fluid in the sense that we have the policy in place right now. Anytime we ever change a policy, we're going to have to get permission to do that through the council. But we do expect that, down the road there might be changes that are just more practical for our department. And then, of course, everything gets approved through the city council. We've been conferring on a regular basis with the city attorney's office, with Roger Hippert, and then also with his assistant, Tom Borgen. So at this time, what I'd like to do, just in the interest of time, we've been working really closely with our committee. We have a committee that's worked from day one on this and become kind of subject matter experts. That's who I confer with. And I'd like to introduce them. We have Officer Tara Martin, Corporal Keith Anderson, Officer Achman, and Sergeant Rashi. And we'd like to just talk about different segments that we have, different subcategories. We understand in the interest of time we're going to keep this moving, but we want to try to present everything, and then be here, be available to answer any and all your questions to the best of our ability. So at this time, I'm going to start with Officer Achman. Would you come up here, please?
President Schmidt, members of the council, thank you again. I'm Andrew Achman, one of the patrol officers here. One of my main functions with the body cam committee here is I've been working with the vendors on the hardware, software, what would be the best we think, for our department. In looking at over the past probably year and plus, we've been looking at different vendors: WatchGuard, Panasonic, Taser, Axon, L3. There's pretty much an endless amount of vendors that are currently making body cameras. We narrowed it down to probably two primary ones that we liked at the time, and those were the WatchGuard ones and the Panasonic Arbiters. Currently, right now, the committee is kind of recommending these WatchGuard body cameras. This is what it looks like. It's not currently on. I just wanted to have it here for you guys to look at or show what it would look at or what it would look like. Some of the benefits to this WatchGuard system that have is currently that is what we're using in our squad cars. It's the same vendor that we are using in our squad cars, and we've had lots of luck with it. The officers are happy with it. With that being said, these integrate very well, being the same vendor. There's an ease to use for the officers. They kind of, when everything works right, the officer pretty much has to do no extra work if we would go with these, because the software and the servers all kind of match up. Labeling of case files and stuff also is very beneficial to us in this system. That was one of the big things. Plus, when I was using both systems, is the Panasonic. The labeling on that is a little cumbersome compared to the WatchGuard system. And again, I've talked to other agencies that have had the WatchGuard system. Currently, the Brown County Sheriff's Office use it, and other agencies around us, and they've also had very good success with it and very little downside to it. Again, battery life, this thing is about 9 to 11 hours, depending on, obviously, just like a cell phone. It's a lithium-ion battery, weather-dependent use, et cetera, et cetera. And then good 720p video quality, which when we've been testing inside the office and stuff locally, video quality has been amazing. Audio quality is very good. And then a field of view about 130 degrees. Again, one thing to note with the body cameras, of course, it is only a point of view. It is only going to capture a certain point of view. I'm wearing it here, kind of on my body, right here, so it's only going to capture this view. When it comes to like downloading data, again, this has been very beneficial. The WatchGuard system is wireless, so for our squad cameras, everything will download wireless from our squad cars to there. With the body cameras, we can do that as well if we dock inside the squad cars, or if we're up in the office, we will have docking stations where we will be able to place the body cameras and the data's transmitted automatically. So again, it pretty much takes it out of the officer's hand. You know, kind of, they don't have to worry about it. They just have to either put it in the squad car or put it in the docking station in the office, and then we don't have to worry about the video. And then access to that server is obviously limited to the officer. Can watch their own videos and stuff, or kind of the admin group can watch it if necessary. So.
President Schmitz, members of the council, Corporal Keith Anderson. Part of the committee, we've all had a hand in developing the policy and stuff. And then I've also been kind of, along with Officer Ockman, been doing some testing with what we've got. We currently do have 2 cameras from WatchGuard. We've been testing them in office, and in other words, we haven't done any public testing yet. Everything is in office, just amongst the officers, and trying to get a feel for what the cameras are like. Getting acquainted with how they work, that kind of stuff. So once the policy is approved and the chief gives his approval, then we do plan on doing a 14 to 30 day testing period in the public sector.
Hello, counselors. My name is Chip Rascio, the sergeant with the police department here. Again, like he said, we all had a part in this policy development, and I was in the early stages of this. My part was I researched a lot of other departments and how they went about their funding, their policy development, the required questionnaires as far as getting public input. We're a little bit unique in the sense that we used a grant through the federal government where a lot of these agencies simply budgeted for it, so we've got a little bit lengthier of a process and a few more requirements. Part of this process has also required me, and at the time Sergeant Reed had gone out to DC as a requirement of this policy, and we gone over several things. And with our policy, that 17 mandates that we had to have in our policy. We had a model one that we used through the League of Minnesota Cities, and then in turn we implemented our flair to it, so to speak, and then we're submitting it on a regular basis to the federal government, to the Department of Justice, to make sure that it met their standards. And we essentially used what they call the scorecard, and we had to go through and check off every time that we met these requirements that the federal mandates that we have. And as we've gotten it approved, we're kind of at the stages where, simply we're ready we can spend the money, and then until it's spent, the grant's not complete. It's kind of a fluid process, so this policy can change once the grant's complete to kind of fit our needs as we see what works for our department and the city, and obviously with your guys' approval. So, that will kind of be changing as it goes, I guess. So.
Good evening, Council. I'm Tara Martin. I have been with the committee since the beginning. My part is doing the federal reporting quarterly. So if we're not compliant with that, we really wouldn't be able to move forward. So that's my part of it. I've helped with the policies. I've done the testing. I have a camera here. You can see we'll wear it in different spots because we have different setups. But this is what would be most practical for me. And so I've tested with our canine officer in the dark, in the light, and it's a great camera. It's obviously practical to have, so I would appreciate your approval in the future.
President Schmitz, members of the council, I felt it was important that we give a little bit of an overview of the entire process. What we're here for today is the policy, and hoping to get the approval. But at this time, if we're all here to try to answer any and all questions that you may potentially have from
Anybody
members of
have
the
any
council, and with your permission from members of the
Yeah.
public.
Anybody have any questions?
I do have some questions, but I don't know if you want to let the public speak first, or?
No,
Or
it
does it
doesn't make
matter?
any difference. Just go
Okay.
for it.
I appreciate the time to ask some questions. I like this policy. Obviously, people put a lot of time and effort, and you know that an attorney has looked at this several times. I'd like that you have the purpose of these camcorder recorders are to enhance officer safety and to document statement and events during the course of an incident. Those are the top two. There's more, but including public trust and aiding in documentation and courtroom testimony. So I really like that it's laid out in that direction. You've answered some of my questions that I had written down before tonight's meeting already. I wanted to know a bit more about this committee, but you just had those folks come in and talk, so I appreciate that. The evaluation phase, I heard 30 days. Is that right? Can you talk a little bit more about what that is going to be all about and what you're going to hope to accomplish during that time?
Counselor Schultz, we are looking at a 14 to 30-day testing phase where the members of the committee will be the ones testing them.
So basically you four.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And like I said, Officer Ackman and myself have done some in-house testing where we've done the training on them. We've done videos within the squad room to kind of get a feel of where they should be on the uniform to make them so that they gather as much video as we possibly can get. We've looked at the video quality, that kind of stuff. And then, like I say, once the policy is approved by the council and the chief gives us the okay, then we will be taking them and wearing them in public, and also then doing some evaluating of them at that point.
Sure. Thank you. And you mentioned a little bit too about one of my main questions, how long does it take to download the data? But he said it just does it automatically on the pads. Does it also charge it at the same time too?
Yes, the docking station and the one in the squad. The squad's not nearly as efficient, obviously, being it's a mobile type thing, but it charges
Does
them.
it pretty quickly?
Correct. The upload of the video, obviously, depending on size, but most of them, by the time, if we'd park in the back and go up to the front, or up to our office, usually within a few minutes, it's uploaded.
And the reason I asked, I know some of the old ones would take forever, and I didn't want to see the officers off the road in the office while they're downloading a camera for an hour. But it doesn't sound like it takes long at all nowadays. And these are wide-angle cameras, correct?
Correct. This one, I think, is rated at 130 degrees, so not
Not quite. Okay.
quite 180, but
And how much is each camera? Approximately?
cameras themselves are $995.
And we're looking at purchasing how many?
The initial plan is
21.
Anyway, okay. The last question that I had that when I was reading through this data was the public data access part where people can get access to this data. It talks about how long it can be kept. But it does talk that the use of force by a police officer that results in substantial bodily harm is considered public data, and data that documents in the final disposition of a disciplinary action against a public employee is also public. I'm assuming that's by state law, data practices?
President Schmitz, Counselor Schultz, specifically for your question, the state law would be Chapter 13. That's what would be governing that. We've talked about as far as redaction software, and that's even as we move forward. There's a couple different options of depending on what kind of vendor we want to go with. If we want to do like in-house redaction, which there's pros and cons to that, or if we want to do something where we just order it actually through the vendor. From talking with the committee and just actually talking about this quite recently, just to reinforce it, what they're getting from other departments is that they're not getting a whole lot of data requests. So sometimes, if even if it costs more each time when you're going through the process, if you're only doing it 2-3 times a year versus daily or monthly or something like that, those type of requests, that's obviously a factor as far as is it cost prohibitive. And I'm going to ask Sergeant Rashi, didn't you do the research at Burnsville? Do you want to maybe just touch on that as far as the likelihood of what they're seeing?
Yeah, well, a few agencies, the county, Brown County itself has had none so far, and they've been implemented for 4 years, maybe 5. Fairmont has had it in play for a couple of years. They've had none. Burnsville, one of the original people in the state that have implemented it, they've had it about 10 years, and they've only had 7 requests at that time. That was last year. I don't know in the last year if they've had anything, but so 7 times in 10 years is.
You're probably not going to see a lot. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. I thought of one more question. I know you collect, as officers, you have to collect all this data, and it's downloaded, and it's got to be stored. And then I did see in here that the sergeants have to periodically look at that data, which I think is smart. If you're collecting the data, somebody should be spot checking that data and seeing what's all in there, make sure that it's working and officers are doing what they're supposed to do, type of thing. So is that an expanded policy that you're gonna see about what they're gonna look for and how often and how much and?
Well, we have to do the auditing every, within the 2-year period of time, but I think we're going to be doing it certainly on a more regular basis. I think that's important that we're kind of checking ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
And how I foresee it is that we're going to be using our committee pretty heavily because they've been involved from day one. But we could certainly be assigning other sergeants that task too, because I think the more hands that are in something like this, I think the better. But that's how I realistically see it coming out. One of our assistants, our clerical personnel, is very computer literate, and I think she's going to be carrying kind of a lion's share from that standpoint. But I'm going to want to have either myself or the commander or one of the sergeants actually doing the spot audits, if that makes sense, if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. That's all the questions that I have. I support this. I think it's long overdue, and I wish you all very good luck in this process. It's never easy to implement a large change like this, so I'm sure there's maybe a few officers that are maybe ambivalent about this, but I think in the long run you'll probably come to appreciate this data collection.
It's a public hearing. Anybody from the audience like to be heard? Any of the other counselors?
I guess I just have one question on the usage. How often do you think that, on average, do you think those cameras get activated? Either in a year or a month, or, just statistically?
You mean as far as
Yeah,
people
how-
asking for?
No, not asking for it. How often will the officers actually be activating those, on average, do you think?
I think they're going to be on a daily basis.
Okay.
They'll be, because, anytime that we have, any contact with the public, if we're doing a citation or if we're doing, an arrest or anything like that, we're going to certainly want to any type of calls for service, we're going to certainly want to be activating that, for everybody's protection, including our own, because we want to be documenting that. So I'm going to say daily, and the officers will be using this on a regular basis.
So it's not just a certain type of call, it's going to be pretty much across the board?
Yes.
I'd just like to add, I think it would be a valuable tool for the future here with the technology, and give you credit for taking the initiative to look for a grant and help fund it.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'll offer a motion to close
Thank
the
you.
public hearing and offer the resolution establishing the New Ulm Police Department's body worn camera policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, close public hearing, offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none? Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Item 2B, conduct a public hearing to consider a resolution approving the preliminary final plat of the Cottonwood Street right-of-way located at 600 to 1226 Cottonwood Street.
I'm just at the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval at the preliminary and the final plot at the November 29th, 2018 meeting. And we had no oral or written responses to it, and a lot of this is just kind of cleaning up the plot for the roadway.
Okay.
It's not a thing that we do too often with a major roadway.
It's a public hearing. Anybody like to be heard?
With that, I'll motion to close the public hearing, offer a resolution, waive the reading, approving the preliminary and final plat of the Cottonwood Street right-of-way located at 600 to 1226 Cottonwood Street.
Second.
Anybody?
I'll offer the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item 3B, consider a motion to approve the issuance of a bed and breakfast license for the period beginning January 1st, 2019 and ending December 31st, 2019.
I'll offer the motion to approve the bed and breakfast license for Shannon and Todd McKeith, Bingham Hall Bed and Breakfast, 500 South German Street, and Victoria McCulley and David Krinklaw, Deutschstrasse Bed and Breakfast, 404 South German Street, subject to compliance with all city requirements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 3C, consider approval of the issuance of annual wine, strong beer, and 3.2% malt liquor license for State Street Theater Company.
I'll offer the motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second, and that's for beginning February 1st, 2019, ending June 30th, 2019. Seeing no discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 3D, consider motion to approve the issuance of a temporary on-sale liquor permit for the New Ulm Farm City Hub Club. And that's for January 21st, 2019.
I'll offer the motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4A, report from the city engineer regarding the proposed 2019 capital improvement program. Mr. Kaler, I was going to say, but we'll let, Joe going to do it or you?
No, I'll start, Mr. President.
Go for it.
You have a 32-page engineer's report on the proposed 2019 capital improvement program referred to as the CIP. The report itself has 8 sections, a large addendum with estimated detailed basis of cost, and a couple of maps. Mr. Stadheim has an area map of the city that will show the areas that we're recommending improvements, and also has an overhead aerial of the first area we're going to look at. My goal is to go through section 1 and 2 and kind of itemize the details in there, and then if you have any other questions, we can attempt to answer those. So starting in section 1, we have Project A, which is the 2019 utility street and alley improvement. Number 1 is Front Street from 7th to 13th South, and Joe has the aerial up on that. I think you're all aware that Front Street pavement is rather poor condition. There's a sanitary sewer main, clay 24-inch undersized from 1938 we need to replace. There's some old non-metallic 6-inch water main we need to replace. So this will be a full utility reconstruction, roadway, curb and gutter. And then we've also would like to infill non-existing sidewalk from 8th to 12th South on both sides of the street to conform to our complete streets policy and to give an area to walk in that part of the city. So when you add up all the estimated costs, I'm coming in at about $2.477 million. That's a rather large project and some deep digging with the sanitary sewer. The second area is 2nd South Street from Broadway to Washington. That's a 2-block segment. That is also a full underground reconstruct and roadway reconstruct. We've got a 6-inch water main there from 1891, a sanitary sewer, clay sewer from 1906. So we need to get in there and redo that as well as the roadway. Those 2 blocks I'm estimating at about $424,000. Number 3 is Spring Street from 20th North to 21st North in the Prairie Land First Edition. This is initial roadway improvements, curb and gutter, pavement, and sidewalks on both sides of the street. For those of you who are familiar with that, it's out by the MR paving excavation complex, and there's the area's been filled out with storage units, so it's probably about time to get in there. The next one is Spring Street, 1 block to the south between 19th and 20th North. That's a gravel section adjacent to an apartment building. We want to do roadway improvements, curb and gutter, and sidewalk in that location. I guess I missed the estimated cost on the first Spring Street. That's about $555,000. The next block is about $160,000. Then we've got 1 alley improvement petitioned in, 136 north of Center, estimated about $53,000 for alley pavement there. Then number 6 is the National Guard Armory and FMS. We'd like to do a storm sewer extension from North Highland Avenue to the east property line of the Armory parcel. We're looking at about $352,000 to get that accomplished. We've got to work out some easements, but we're moving ahead with that. Shells Road, number 7, is reconstruction or stabilization of about 150 feet of roadway up near the brewery itself. There's about, the edge is kind of breaking off. We need to go in there and reinforce and repave some of that. About $48,000 I'm estimating for that. Number 8 is concrete sidewalk and ADA improvements. This segment is areas where the street department is going to do 12 blocks of surface reconstruct, and as part of that, we need to do the ADA corners or ped ramps that are non-compliant with our ADA inventory and transition plan. I'm estimating about $36,000 for that. The summation of the 2019 Utility Street and Alley Improvement Group 1 is about $4,105,000. Then we move into Group B, which is the 2019 MSAS Improvement Project. This is 5th North Street from Garden Street to North Highland Avenue. We've got a 1959 14-inch cast iron water main that needs to be replaced up to the storage unit up on Monument Street. We've got an old 1929 clay sanitary sewer that needs to be replaced. The roadway itself is in very poor condition. It's a narrow corridor. It's only about a 60-foot wide right-of-way. We've got electrical power distribution, natural gas, telephone fiber, TV signal. It's got a lot of things going on. So we want to do a full reconstruct. We're going to add sidewalk on the north side of Fifth North, adjacent to the Diocesan Center where there is none, and basically replace or reconstruct sidewalk on both sides of the roadway for the entire length. Total cost, estimated cost is about 2.1 million for that particular project. We've got about 950,000 in federal funding on that project, and we can also use some of our state aid funds on that as well. Number C is the 2019 Surface Reconstruction and Overlay Project by City Forces. This is a group that we try and do 12 blocks of surface reconstruct every year. The first area is First South Street from Washington to Payne. That's a 3-block segment, estimated at about 126,000. Fifth South Street from German to Franklin is a 5-block segment. That's estimated at about 175,000. C is 8th South Street from German Street to Broadway. That's a 2-block segment, about 73,000. And D is 9th South Street from German to Broadway. That's another 2-block segment of about 73,000. That entire package adds up to about 447,000 to do that work. Number D is North Highland Avenue Improvement Project. We're proposing to construct a mini roundabout at Oak Street. Several meetings ago, the City Council approved some engineering work to be started on that. I'm estimating that at about $366,000. We've got to still jump through some hoops with some intersection control evaluation, but our goal is to try and get that let and constructed this summer, along with the rest of these projects. E is the 2019 airport project. We've got about $300,000 in federal money to do some apron pavement maintenance around the T hangars need to be replaced, as well as some crack sealing on the primary runway 1533. So when you add those all up, we're at just under $7.3 million dollars on that particular recommended improvements. So that's section number 1. Section number 2 is a summation of estimated dedicated funding sources as well as the projecting bonding need. So we've got about $7.3 million in estimated cost, almost $3.8 in dedicated funding sources, and some other miscellaneous add-ons and subtractions for a projected gross bonding need of about $3,044,000, which is kind of right in that slot of about 2.8 to 3 million. And then with regard to special assessments, that's another area, but we're looking at estimated special assessments of just over $1 million. So that's about 30 or 33% of the bonding cost for that project. So that's our recommended and proposed improvements, and I could try and answer any questions if you might have any.
Anybody have any questions?
Mr. President, I know that Fifth North Street has been bad for a number of years, and it's one of the main accesses to the school, obviously, during the school months. And I know this projects go on during the summer, but can we actually even bid that out so that it does most of it takes place during the months that there is no school? Because it's such a heavy used road in the mornings.
This project is very complicated and will be a long-term situation. I suspect it'll start at the beginning of June and probably even run through the end of September or October. So there's not going to be any allowable traffic. We need to work with a couple of landowners that need access off of West or Linden, and then obviously the hospital needs to get access mostly from 8th North, and we've had meetings and discussions with them as well.
Okay.
But as far as school traffic, it's not going to work.
Be lots of fun then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just another comment. I was looking at over the weekend on the roads that are in good, fair, and poor shape, and I don't remember what page that's on. But but I was pretty impressed that we've cut the failure roads in half in the last, 10 years?
Yes, 10 or 11 years.
Yeah, I mean, that just, to me, is huge.
It's on page number 6, if anybody's interested. Show the construction year, and beginning in 2010, we had almost 31 miles of failed miles, and now we're down to 14.5. This year, we'll knock off another 2. That map shows green, yellow, and red as well, map number 1. Green is really good. Yellow is marginal, but still okay, and then red are the reconstruct areas. So you want to have some kind of a mix. You don't want everything all green, because then everything is going to be reconstructed at the same time. I think we've done a pretty good job of keeping up, and obviously we can always do more, but it costs money to keep these projects going.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Get a motion.
Hearing none, I'll offer a motion to adopt the proposed 2019 capital improvement program and acknowledge receiving the engineer's report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
It's once again a very thorough and good report by the engineering staff, and much appreciated.
Seeing no more? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5A, consider notification of the City Council annual meeting to be held on Tuesday, January 8th, 2019 at 4:30 PM.
I'll offer the motion.
I guess we don't need one, do we?
No, no motion,
Just-
yeah, just
just,
a
More or
less, just
notification.
notice.
Information.
And reminder.
So, thank you. All right. Item 6A, consider resolution to sponsor a project to construct a rectangular rapid flashing beacon on Broadway at 4th South Street. Steve, you got some on that one?
Yeah, Mr. President, previously, the city council authorized a letter of intent to apply for Safe Routes to School grant application, which is a state grant. To fund this, we've been working on this a couple of years. We've got a final application to submit prior to January 4th. Mr. Stadheim has been working on filling out that final application and getting some resolutions from the various schools in the city, and they also require a resolution from the city supporting the project if we get and accept the grant. So you're not committing to it, but if you accept the grant, we will have to deliver it.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
That I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading, agreeing to act as the sponsoring agency for a project to construct a rectangular rapid flashing beacon on Broadway and 4th South Street.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 6B, consider resolution to sponsor a project to construct a roundabout on North Highland Street and Oak Street.
Mr. President, this is the exact same scenario, except this is for the proposed roundabout at Oak Street on North Highland Avenue. Again, we're asking $300,000 to construct it. We have about $40,000 in estimated engineering costs that is not eligible, but it's a state grant, and we'll find out, I believe, in April if it's awarded.
So if it isn't awarded, then what the project you showed earlier on the roundabout?
Well, we can use our state aid funding for that, which is our fallback position in my estimation, or we can bond for it, but obviously we've got we have a state aid balance we could use as well, but this is kind of
Better.
free money, so
Okay,
Yeah.
I agree.
take this first.
We'll try for it first, right? All right. Any other questions?
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading, agreeing to act as the sponsoring agency for a project to construct a roundabout at North Highland Avenue and Oak Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer resolution, waived reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 6C, consider resolution to adopt the 2019 budget of the City of New Ulm totaling $23,771,216 with a total property tax levy of $7,693,527 and the City of New Ulm net property tax levy of $7,536,527. Nicole.
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading.
Second.
We got a motion, a second to offer resolution, waived reading. Any discussion? Seeing none? Finance Director, call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 7A, consider resolution designating the annual community celebration as community events for the year 2019.
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading on this one as well.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waived reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 What
Opposed,
was
no.
Resolution.
Oops, sorry. Yep, sorry.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. We'll go. Item 7B, consider motion to authorize the Lutheran Social Services Senior Dining 2019 lease agreement. Mr. Schmitz.
Tom Schmitz, Park and Recreation Department. President Schmitz and councilors, you have before you a request that often comes at the end of the year to possibly consider adjustments to fees. Our fee philosophy has generally been to adjust fees in order to keep up with inflation, somewhat similar to the Consumer Price Index. And this is an opportunity that you have in relationship to the Lutheran Social Services Agreement at the Community Center for senior meals. You have all the information here in the council request for action form. The Park and Recreation Commission has recommended moving forward with this. Slight adjustment in their per day rate, up to $53 per day. And a couple of modest changes to the verbiage in the lease. For instance, adding Monday through Friday to item 5, and changing the off-site verbiage to out of New Ulm city limits, and then considering a change to the percentage of meals that go out of city limits. It's presently 70% in the lease agreement, and the city manager is recommending 60%. You have in the attachment some information related to the number of meals that are going to residents of other cities. So it's important that the city council understands a certain subsidy that New Ulm residents are providing to residents of other municipalities in the area. And then in the budgetary and fiscal issues, you've got the history. We were having a slow annual cost of living increase annually in the past, and then in 2014, there was a major adjustment from $86.50 per day down to $50 per day. And at that point, the finance department did a study and analyzed the fact that we have a municipal cost of over $101 per day as far as municipal expenses related to the kitchen and the dining room at the community center. So I think you have all the information there. If you've got any questions, I'll try to answer those. I think we also have some representatives of LSS here, if you have questions for them.
How long ago was that study done that had that $101 a day?
2014.
Okay. And I gotta scroll down here for I noticed that the number of meals from this year to last year is down about 3,500 meals. But let me get back to that. If we go back to 2014, it's almost 20,000. Oh, wait a minute. Wow. Am I reading that right? 20,000 less meals?
That is what the data shows, correct.
So I would assume that $101 rate, well, there's inflation mixed in here too, but the cost of gas and all the utilities, making 20,000 less meals is going to certainly affect that figure dramatically. I know in 2014, this was a really hot potato. We as a council stood behind the folks making the meals because we thought this is very important for our community and our elderly, and they're not asking for much of an increase, but it still worries me every time that price goes up. I would just be devastated if that program ever just failed or walked away from our community. So if they are here, I mean, is that, you want to talk just a little bit about where you're at with costs and maybe a little bit about why you see everything?
Can I
meals
comment
going
really
down?
quickly on my 60% decrease? So the Parks and Rec Board had requested a 50% decrease, which I thought, based on the data, would be unfair because they're already serving 56% outside of the city. So I suggested the 60%,
Okay.
but by no means do you have to lower
Go
it
with
at
that
any
amount.
point.
That
That's
answers
the
my
reason for the
question.
60, yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I appreciate you letting us speak. My name is Andrea Lingle. I am a statewide program director for Lutheran Social Service. I also have Sue Date here, and Sue is our local site coordinator down at the senior dining site. Sarah Anderson, you might know that name as well. She's a regional manager for us. She had a family emergency, and she apologizes that she couldn't be here. But I'll do my best to give you what I can and fill in. So LSS is the provider for the senior nutrition program, also known as senior dining, which offers two different services. And one of those services is congregate dining, where people go down to the center on German Street, and they can eat there. And the second one is home delivered meals, which is also known as Meals on Wheels. So that's where we make the meal, we dish it up, and we deliver to those who can't get out for one reason or another. Our meals, as you know, are prepared here in New Ulm at the center. Our meals are healthy, nutritious, hot meals. We offer meals as well for the weekend for those that have problems preparing. Our menus are made up by a registered dietitian. They're very delicious. So I also invite you down if you haven't. Side note there, a little plug. As stated, we also deliver to a few other communities: Comfrey, Sleepy Eye, Springfield, and St. James. Our request is to keep the rent at $51 a day in 2019, and the percentage of meals going off-site at 75%. We do have limited funding. I don't know how, there's no pretty way to put it. You all, I'm sure, can understand that as well. Our funding has been very stagnant these last years during the federal sequester. That also hurt us. We get funding, state and federal funding, majority of federal funding from the Older Americans Act. We have had times where we have had to reduce service or cut service altogether. We try very hard not to do that and only do that when absolutely necessary. So essentially, we've been asked to do more with less, as you know, our costs increased as well. The cost of food over the last 5 years, how many have noticed an increase in their food bill? The same goes for us. As we're trying to provide nutritious meals, that's also very, very difficult. When you're on a tight budget, we have staffing costs that increase, supply costs, you name it as well, we have it too. Since this is a community program, you know, we're the provider, but we depend on community support. We have wonderful volunteers who help us deliver the Meals on Wheels. That's a sign of support. We work very closely with the United Way. We get some funding from them. That shows support. We look for community support throughout the community of partners who value what we do, and as the City of New Ulm has expressed too, that you value what we do, and we really do appreciate that. As far as off-site meals that go into other communities, when I was here for the Park and Rec Committee, I was noticing all of the talk of different things that the City of New Ulm is doing, which is, it's absolutely amazing. You know, they're talking about a splash pad for families, trying to bring people, do it for the people of the City of New Ulm and also the surrounding areas to bring them in. I'm talking about entertainment and parks improvements and things like that, trying to bring people in from other communities. We went, after that meeting, and I said, you know, let's talk to the people in the other communities. Let's see, where do they go? Where do they go when they go for a doctor's visit? Where do they go when they're going out to lunch with their families on a Sunday? Where do they go when they're going shopping to get some groceries? Things like that. you can guess, New Ulm is certainly a regional hub and something to be proud of. They're coming right here. So even though they might not be directly located in this community, they're supporting your community. They're coming here and oftentimes they're bringing family with them because they can't drive themselves. We serve a lot of different communities with the same setup, a central kitchen with a regional hub where the kitchen is located. And with that, we also offer staffing. We employ, about how many people do we employ down there? 7?
In New Ulm, it's 8 all told.
We employ 8 people in New Ulm, which is also good for the community and a sign of support only for New Ulm. So we do ask that that you would consider keeping it as is for 2019 and help support our program. Do you all have any questions that I can
just got a
answer?
comment.
Sure.
I'd like to thank you for everything you've been doing. I know people that have used the service, and I've been involved with people that have used the service, and I myself was one that didn't want to raise the rates way back in 2014, and I support
Appreciate
it
that.
today again. I think it's something, you can use all the statistics you want, but the senior center was built for the seniors of New Ulm and the community and the surrounding communities. The actual cost to go out and serve, whether it's Sleepy Eye, Springfield, or wherever it all goes, I know it goes to different smaller communities, but once you got your workers in there and you're creating a meal, it isn't costing $100 and some to take care of all these people or whatever. It's a drop in the bucket for what we really do for the community, and I think it's a service well worth it.
Thank you.
Well, and for a lot of our elderly folks, this is what keeps them in their home too,
Right.
is this
Yep.
direct meal and having that daily contact with an outside person. And we all know what the cost of nursing homes and assisted care facilities are, would eat up this increase in no time. And I think the city and the county greatly benefits by your program, and they do. And we do appreciate what you do, so.
Any more comments?
I would certainly be in favor of taking a look at it, maybe an increase next year, but for this year, I'm going to offer a motion to leave the daily fee at the $51 rate.
Keep it at 75% on the outside, or whatever that number was.
Yeah, 75%.
What we did last year, yeah,
Keep it as was,
as is.
I'd second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Excuse
Sorry,
me,
Tom. Yeah.
just to double check the other components of the lease. Questions on adding the verbiage Monday through Friday, which was meant to be in the initial lease and never got into the initial lease.
Okay.
And then changing the verbiage from off-site to out of New Ulm city limits.
Yes, I have no problem adding that to my motion.
Second.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
more discussion?
I guess I have a hard time not raising. It's such a small increase, and the cost of the facility and everything, I think that there is reason to probably raise that. Waiting one more year, or, why we could do a small this year and a small next year. I just think that we cut that back, way back when, what was it, $100 and some? And we cut it way back.
No, they were
Cut it in half.
asking
It
for
was-
86.
Or
We
86.
tried to
Okay,
take a
fi-
drastic
yeah.
increase, and we didn't. I mean, I guess I still think we're getting a great bang for our
I-
buck, and
I do.
the increase of $600 isn't gonna make or break us. I mean, this is
Right.
peanuts. I mean, I'm glad
Making
years
less
ag-
meals.
Huh?
They're making less meals.
Right.
Do you get any funding from other communities? I mean, that are contributing to?
Right. So not at this time as far as contribution from other communities coming back to support the kitchen. The other communities, we don't use the kitchen. However, we do use the space, and they let us be there rent-free.
You get any funding from the county?
No, we don't.
Have you asked?
We haven't. And we were talking with Tom as well, or had mentioned at the last meeting, we'd be more than willing to write a letter in partnership, with Tom in the city to ask for some support from the other communities. That would definitely be on the table. We have no problem doing that.
Any more comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7C, consider resolution to accept donations offered to the City of New Ulm Park and Rec Department.
Offer the resolution, waive the reading to accept the following donations to the City of New Ulm for the Park and Rec Department. Herman 5K race sponsorship, $150 Happy Joe's. Trap and Skeet Range improvements, $1,362 cash from Sioux Trails Chapter of the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association. And I don't know who, but to the swimming pool, 2 face snorkels valued at $30.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye. Oh,
Aye.
sorry,
Resolution.
Finance Director, call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries.
Before you
Whoop.
go any further, Park and Rec, would you make sure that I get a copy of who to send the thank yous to?
Emails en route.
There you
Computer's
go.
off, so I won't know till morning.
Item 7D, consider resolution approving the Minnesota Department of Public Safety Violence Crime Enforcement Team for the Brown Lions and Redwood County Drug Task Force to grant agreement number AVCET 2019 New Ulm Police Department number 00012 in the amount of $130,000.
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. This is an annual thing, so.
I do have a question, Mr. President. Years ago, when we got one of our first grants, the council appointed me as the representative, and I haven't been invited to a meeting for a long time, so I'll just maybe point that out to Dave as that goes forward. I mean, I wasn't an official appointment, but
They're open meetings and they're the, second Tuesday of every month? Third Tuesday. Thursday.
it's,
Sorry.
but by council vote, I was supposed to represent the council at those meetings.
Mr. Council President.
Yes, it's been a
members
while
of the
ago.
council. I believe what you're referring to, Councilor Schultz, is they have an annual meeting. They have them at different locations. Generally, they'll have them at, in Redwood Falls.
Yep,
I believe
Redwood
that's the
Falls.
one you're referring to, and they have usually from each of the agencies, because the Brown Lion, Redwood, and Renville Drug Task Force is made up of, they have each city, usually the largest city
Yep.
from each county has a representative, and then also each county. So that generally they would, I'm familiar with it because I've been at that meeting. I filled in one time for retired Chief Wheeland, and they have a counselor from representing each city, and then they have a county commissioner representing each
Yep.
county. Because I know with Brown County, it's Commissioner Winchittle. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes, I think
It's an
so.
annual meeting, and
I
then
think
they
it was
kind of
more
give a
often
little
than-
bit of a report on
Report on what's
what their
going on.
progress was for the
Yep.
year and what their challenges are.
Yeah, if you just get me back on the list.
I don't know that they did one last fall, and I don't know that they did one this.
Oh, maybe that's why I
It's
haven't been
been a couple
invited.
I don't, yeah, I wouldn't have been involved in the last
I'm-
one,
I'm
but
not
I.
directly anymore either, but I'm
When
pretty sure it's
when
been
I
a
was the
couple
interim
years.
chief, a few years ago, I know that in that particular year, we had one that time.
Right.
And I thought that was an annual basis. I believe that's what you're referring to?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Not that I'm looking for more meetings, but,
I'll certainly follow up on that and get back to you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Seeing none? Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. At this time, we'll go on to the addendum item.
I'll offer a motion to suspend the rules to take on the addendum, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Under new business, consider personnel committee recommendation for the adoption of a revised section 5.2 and 9.4 holidays, city employees and PUC personnel policy manual.
Thank you, Counselor Schmitz and counselors. Counselor President Schmitz and Counselor Fisher met yesterday in regards to a personnel committee that we had. And there was some discussion about the Christmas Eve holiday when it falls on a Monday, and changing that from currently we have 4 hours when it falls on a Monday to move that to 8 hours. And both Counselor Fisher and Council President Schmitz was for that. So, and it was just discussed yesterday, and that's why we added it as an addendum item. So.
And the reason for that is because when it falls on a Monday like that, they'll have the 2 days off. They'll come in for 4 hours, and you're bringing those crews in for 4 hours, and then they're going to be off at noon already, and then have Tuesday off. So it happens once like every 7 years, and it's kind of like on the PUC side, those crews aren't going to go out and work, in the field and go into people's houses, on Christmas Eve day. So it might be a little bit of an added benefit, but it is probably, we're not really losing anything by allowing the employees to have that once every 7 years.
I also researched it for you, and it isn't going to happen again until 2029, and it's going to happen in 2035. And when it hits a leap year, it's going to happen 2 years in a row.
Oh, no.
So I don't think it has a big impact.
Yeah, and it's just when it falls on a Monday. That's
Right.
that would be the only
Very
change.
rare.
When it happens. With that being said, I'll motion to approve the Personnel Committee's recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. No more business. Meeting adjourned.